wrestling world lost one of the great announcers of especially of the Impact Zone. I can't think of the Impact Zone without thinking about Don West. So we here at Ole want to go ahead and send our condolences to the family of Don West that we lost just before the new year. It's just not going to be the same watching that six-sided steel cage without Don West there. But we're moving on to NXT. I am Ed Fries. I'm joined by my tag team partner, Astrid Pizarro. And NXT opens, a little cold, with a video package with their best of 2022. I like how other wrestling companies are like, we need to have a whole hour to do our best of moments. NXT's like, give us 5 minutes to the top, we got it. It was really good though. It highlighted the some title changes. It highlighted some big moments. I do think it's funny when they're showing like various title changes and like NXT Women's Championship. There's only the one moment.
No,
it was there. The whole thing was there. It was there and in its entirety. She was in the picture. But like how with every other title, it's like 2 or 3 different champions over the course of the year. NXT Women's Division 1.
Mm-hmm.
We have our friend Carl with Turnbuckle Studios. Thank you very much, Carl, for joining us. You had an awesome show earlier today with my other tag team partner for Marvel Talk, Andre C., which you will catch us tomorrow. And I'll talk about that later. But this show opened up with a banger of a match. And really, the first 35-40 minutes of this show were about Trick Mello. Because we open, as we say hello to Sean Cena, who's joining us again. Hello, hello. We open with Carmelo Hayes versus Apollo Crews. And Astrid, just go ahead, because you know how lovingly I'm going to talk about this match. Why don't you go ahead and get in there first?
What can I just say? I'm enjoying Carmelo opening the show. If it's something that's starting, I don't mind it. Keep it this way. Because when they advertised these matches last week, I kept thinking it's either going to be Axiom and Trick or Apollo and Carmelo opening the show. And I'm glad it was Apollo and Carmelo. Yeah, I love the match between these two, like the pacing they have with each other. The only thing I would have done without, and I know it has to be part of it because of the characters, but I could have done with the distractions from Trick. Aside from that, I was like, that's the only thing I would have taken out of this match because the match was so well done. I didn't want it to end, unfortunately, but it had to end somehow. But it just like, of course, with Trick assisting with his distractions, the way that Carmelo wins the match at the end. But either way, it was a good match. I'm glad they opened the show, to be honest.
Yeah, it gives me an early Nitros feel when the Cruiserweights would go out there and they'd be like, give us 10, 15 minutes. Sean's like, all right, Carmelo, you and Apollo, you got 10. They both look at him and go, you meant 20, right? No, we have a busy show. You can have 10 minutes. Sean, we're taking 20. Fine, you can have 20. Just make it good. And it was.
Yeah.
I mean, it wasn't even in the breaks there was some action going on. I mean, towards the end of the ad break there was, a rest hold for Apollo Crews earlier in the match. It went through the ad break, that was nice. But the finish, like you were talking about, Trick Williams goes ahead and interferes. Leads to Apollo Crews hitting that big knee. And Apollo Crews goes for that standing moonsault that he loves to hit. Mello moves. Mello hits a C4. I don't remember him hitting. I think it's a C4, backwards codebreaker. Looked fantastic. He goes ahead and hits that. He hits his leg drop. 1, 2, 3. Match is over. However, that's not the end of this. Because out of nowhere, Axiom comes in, just like our friend Chris Parrish jumping in. Not out of nowhere. Chris Parrish is always welcome in our chat. Axiom, however, less welcome. But Axiom goes ahead and attacks both Trick and Carmelo Hayes. That dastardly heel Axiom that he is. And he starts brawling with both of them, and we come back from the ad break, mid-match between Axiom and Trick Williams. And again, really fun match. It didn't go as long as I thought it would, but again, I think, thus to the joke I made earlier, I think Sean was like, we'll give you 10, and they're like, we want 20, and Sean was like, fine, but Trick gets 5. But it was just enough. Trick Williams actually looked really good in this match. Axiom and Trick Williams were a really good pair. They this train is gonna go. Wait, you're the train you're the one keeping an eye on the train with what goes on Sundays, and you're the one keeping an eye on us.
Well, on you, not me. I'm just saying.
There wasn't enough good. There wasn't enough good stuff for me to go too far off the rails tonight. But no, this was really fun. Trick looked great. I thought Axiom really accented a lot of the great things that Trick can do. Trick's height is always one of the greatest things that you can employ. You forget, because he's the guy behind Carmelo Hayes, just how big he is. Until he gets in that ring and like he's in the center of the ring and he's just able to reach out and grab the ropes. Really good match. I liked it. Bit of back and forth. Axiom doesn't have to hit his finish though, but he does pin Trick. And then he gets jumped as Trick grabs his ankle and Carmelo Hayes comes back in and he attacks him. And I'd mentioned this right after we went to the first ad break after the first match. I'm like, oh, we're getting a tag team match next week, aren't we? And of course, it looks exactly like we're going to get that as Apollo Crews comes back out to even the sides. And it looks like they didn't announce it, but I wouldn't be surprised if next week or in the next few weeks we see Apollo Crews and Axiom versus Carmelo Hayes and Trick Williams.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on Trick and Axiom?
One thing I was going to say too before there, it just reminds me of the segment that we had with Grace and Roxanne when Roxanne challenged Mandy for the title, just like that continuity that they had of like Axiom being Trick and then was like, we're doing this now. And I was like, oh, okay, if we're going at it, we might as well. But yeah, I just didn't like that. Like I said, it was too short for me for that one, but I enjoyed the match. I enjoyed the pacing between them. And like you said, you were, I was thinking it and then you typed it in the chat. You're like, oh, tag team next week. And I was like, yeah, okay, I'm not the only one. Good to know. But yeah, I think it's something that I would like to see next week. It'll be interesting though.
We have Melball Collins jumping in fashionably late as always, saying good evening, lovely. She has got a good evening ahead as her and my other tag team partner, her normal tag team partner, Andre C, will be covering in its entirety a watch party for Wrestle Kingdom shortly after we go off the air.
Troopers, yeah.
About 1:30, I think, 3:30
Yep.
Eastern, 1:30 Mountain, I believe is the time frame for that to start. Big night ahead for Wrestle Kingdom. We've got the double main event of Kenny Omega versus Will Ospreay, and I believe the main event is going to be Okada versus Jay White for the IWGP Unified title, I think it's what it's called. It has a new name since they changed it when they merged it. They're going live a little early at 1 o'clock Eastern time to go ahead and check the chat. There we go. Like I said, they'll be on shortly after we're done. So go ahead and make sure that you keep your OLE open so you can just go ahead and jump right into that stream. And yes, as Sean Cena says, prayers for Damar Hellman. Terrible what happened to him on Monday Night Football. Hard to think about. Hope he is comfortably resting in critical condition at the hospital as last I checked. So we'll go ahead and keep an eye on that story as we go. We then get a backstage segment with the New Day. And in comes the Schism. And I'm like, I didn't see this coming, but I like where this is going. Keep going. And I'm like, oh, they're going to do a tag team match. I'm like, all right, the New Day versus Schism next week for the tag titles. Or, something like that. I'm like, all right. And then Gacy's calling out Kofi. And I'm like, tell me more. And they announced the match, and I'm like, yes. I typed to Astrid, put this match in my veins. Like, talk about I didn't know I needed to see. Kofi Kingston versus Joe Gacy. And it'll be later on tonight in our main event. This was fun. The Schism is so good. And each of them play their role. It's very interesting that the comparison that they made between the New Day. Where they talk about how Gacy's the leader. Gacy's like, I'm not the leader. I'm just the person they lean on. Like you, Kofi. And at that point, Kofi and Wood start leaning on each other and being like, haha, funny. But it's interesting that I feel the same way about them. Like, Gacy's obviously the singles guy in that group of three. but he's not necessarily the leader.
Mm-hmm.
I think I could see any one of them leading that group. I think Gacy's more his mic skills lend to him being a better leader of the group.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't think that Zach Gibson, because I honestly can't remember what silly name they gave him, as much as I try. I think he's Rip.
Rip Fowler and then Jagger Reed.
Yeah,
I think of Ray Jagger when I remember. Sorry.
I think he's Rip, but I can't remember. But either way, Zach Gibson on the mic could be the leader, but I think Gacy embodies the character so much better.
Mm-hmm.
But this group of 4 is really growing on me. What did you think of this backstage segment? Is there anything that I didn't point out that you wanted to?
No, just like something like you said, I wasn't expecting this to happen the way it did, but at the same time, the way he brought it up is like it's the same thing in like New Day. Like even though a lot of people think of like, for example, with the Shield, a lot of people think of the Empress as the leader, and I keep thinking like they were for me 3 individuals that just grouped together. There was a leader to it. That's how I always saw it, and I like how they compared it to like New Day. It's like, well, you're not that far off from us, right, if you think about it. And it's like there's no leader to you guys. There's no 3 of you, and that's it. So I thought that was interesting. I just wasn't expecting him to like put the spotlight on Kofi of all people the way he did, but it was enjoyable. The only thing I was thinking, oh, if they put as a main event tonight, is it really going to have enough time to really develop the way you wanted to, like the way we hoped that match would be? So that was my only concern when this happened.
Yep. And then we get a backstage vignette, and I've loved everything they've done with Dijak. If Dijak were scripts, I think everything would be perfect. Because he is doing an incredible job with the role that he's been given. They film everything he does in such a great way, where they film it like looking up at him from an angle so that you see into his glasses what he's looking at, so you get both parties. To put more context in this, he has Stacks handcuffed to a chair. He's got a black eye. He's getting beat up because he got kidnapped last week. I didn't realize he kept him. I thought he just took him to the back and then let him go. I didn't realize he kept him, which is odd because he then lets him go right before the match, which is weird. But we'll let that small little bit just go away because it was a really interesting vignette where Dijak basically tells him that he's there for Tony and he's just using him as a prop. And he made a tape of it, and I want to know what the tape's going to be, because that was weird. Like, why is he making a cassette tape? Who has cassette tapes nowadays?
Well, that reminds me of like Criminal Minds and like SVU, where like that's their MO, like their trophies of the people that are like their victims kind of thing. So that's what it makes me think about, but you never know.
But what? But in 2023, why was he using a tape deck? Like, is this something that Shawn Michaels has backstage to listen to his theme song? Because Lord knows Shawn can't figure out a cell phone. So, I mean, we've all seen Shawn Michaels trying to type. And if you haven't seen that GIF, look up Shawn Michaels typing. It's one of the greatest GIFs in the world. But Dijak heads to the ring, and we get the Stacks versus Dijak match. I apparently somehow missed, because I got up to go get a drink of water, Andre Chase and Drew Gulak getting into it, as Gulak is out back in the training ring, showing off with a couple of the Andre Chase U students, and Hank Walker. God, I'm really starting to hate Hank Walker. I hate the name Hank. Like,
I like the Walker part, but not the Hank part.
In my notes, he's always just Hank. Like, I'm just irritated. I'm just irritated. So I just write Hank in my notes. Either way, this is a fun little match. Andre Chase is irritated and pissed off that his students are learning from a different teacher. And Gulak's just like, I was just showing them a couple things. And then Duke's all of a sudden like, oh, well, Mr. Chase is mad. Hey, you can't do that. Mr. Chase is a great man. And I'm like, we see this, Duke. We see this.
We see you.
And I thought this was going to lead to a match between Duke Hudson and Hank. But no, it leads to, pleasantly surprised, Andre Chase versus Drew Gulak, which I'm much more interested in seeing.
Yeah.
We then get Stacks and Dijak. Stacks beat up to hell, coming to the ring. Go ahead and talk to us about this match.
The thing that I like stood out to me the most is Dijak's knee towards the end. Holy crap. That looked really nice. It reminded me a lot of Zoe's finisher of like the way it like visually it's appealing. But it's like it's nothing like we didn't expect. You just we see Stacks getting beat up more than anything. That's nothing out of the ordinary here. Um, to me, the part that really like I kept remembering, I kept thinking about is just after even we have Dijak winning, Tony goes like automatically inside the ring, just like he shakes his head a little bit at first. He's disappointed that he lost, but he comes right into defend him like he's his father, and just like defending him like from the bad guy. And I know he has some words with Dijak, and that's when we have I think the match for next week, if I'm not mistaken. I couldn't really hear what he was saying because the mic was kind of off for me on the stream, so I couldn't understand a lot of what Tony said though. That's your part now.
Yeah. So, one of the things he says is that Stacks has heart. You know, yeah, he lost. Yeah, he got beat up. But you know what? He came into this match a little bit beat up. He went ahead and showed heart and had a great outing. And he did. The one thing I can say about this is everything going on between Wesley, Tony D'Angelo, and Dijak has done more for Stacks than any one of the other three. Because Dijak, in my mind, is already an incredible wrestler. Like, I've watched him on the Indies and ROH as Dijak. I've watched him in the House of Truth. I've watched him grow as a competitor in the regular NXT, having that great match with Keith Lee, going up to the main roster and unfortunately being T-Bar, and still trying to make that work, and having a great partnership with Mace. Again, a terrible name for the two of them, but two guys that I would have really loved to have seen more of. And now he's back in NXT, and he's got this gimmick that works for him. And I really hope it continues to work. But Stacks is really showing me something here. He had a really good match here with Dijak. Dijak has the best feast your eyes / go to sleep out of anybody other than Kenta. I will put Kenta's a little above Dijak's, but Dijak's is so much more impressive because he's so much bigger. So getting that knee up just looks that much more impressive. And I'll go Melball if she can go ahead and take a look at Dijak's Feast Your Eyes versus Kenta's Go to Sleep and give us a more apt percentage because she sees Kenta's a whole lot more than I do. But yeah, absolutely fantastic. We do have Dijak versus Tony D'Angelo set up for next week, and we'll run down the entire card for next week as we get there. We unfortunately then have, as I put in my notes, the show ground to Gear 1, as we have Oro Mensa, a.k.a. No Way Jose Part 2, with Mackenzie having a boring promo made even worse by Big Body Javi coming in and trying to sell Big Body Christmas, the album, 2 weeks after Christmas. To which he said was a selling point because anybody can sell a Christmas album during Christmas time. Yeah, and that's why Mariah Carey's album has gone like 15 times platinum, because she sells a platinum record every Christmas season since she put out that song. Just saying. There's a reason to her madness. I'm going to go ahead and jump in before we get to... I mean, did you have anything more about this other than they're going to have a match? No. Did Javi say anything interesting that we need to talk about?
No thanks. Sorry, Javi.
Right. So we're gonna go back to Barry. We're gonna go back to Dijak a little bit. The match that made me a fan of Dijak was the match with Brody Lee at the Worlds Collide. Yes, if you haven't seen that, go out and find that Worlds Collide match. It is a sensational match. It's not the most recent Worlds Collide. I want to say it's the Worlds Collide 2 ago. It was the one they did at WrestleMania. They did it like on the side of WrestleMania, and they have Byron Saxton calling the action, which trust me, it's still worth watching even if Byron Saxton is announcing the match. It's still worth watching because it was fantastic. It's the match that made Brody Lee put in his notice, because he's like, I could be having matches like this all the time, but you don't care enough about me. This is why I need to leave. Not because Dijak was a bad match. It's because it showed how good they can be and how nobody cared. We also have Barry jumping in. Hello, everyone. Also, Happy New Year. Yes, Happy New Year. NXT, taking over, going ahead and going into 2023. We've got New Year's Evil coming up next week. Very, very big stuff coming. We then have Toxic Attraction coming to the ring. And my God, did these notes get long quickly. So, Toxic Attraction comes out and they say, all eyes are on JC and I as we leave 22 behind. No resolutions, just revenge. And they get ready to start calling out the champion, Roxanne Perez, until they're interrupted by Indy Hartwell, who comes out and says, God, I thought when we got rid of Mandy that we got the when she lost the title, they didn't say Mandy, when she lost the title, that I thought we were done with Toxic Attraction. And then we are immediately interrupted yet again by Cora Jade coming out, apparently going to Forever 21 and finding something to enhance her characteristics, because she was uncharacteristically amplified tonight. Am I wrong? Did it not look incredibly out of place on her character?
You do. Sorry, I'm still sick. So.
It's fine. So Cora comes out and says, if anybody's going to be taking on Roxanne, it was going to be me. I'm already pinned her. I've already beaten her.
I told you that was going to happen too, that she was going to point that out.
I am going to bring up Barry's thing. It felt like NXT was testing promo skills, see who got good crowd reaction. This segment in Pacific is the reason why I interrupted what I was talking about to do this, because it felt like I said the same thing to Astrid. They were basically putting the entire women's division out there and go, tell us who you like the most.
Yeah.
But no, it's not necessarily a bad thing to gauge crowd interest for a future match, especially when you're building on the fly because you didn't quite have this week built. We then get Nikita Lyons out here calling out Cora Jade for being a loser. We then get Zoe Stark coming out and talking about how Nikita Lyons needs to go back and put up her assets on Instagram, to which I said, why is that a bad thing? It's why she's over and you're not. Wendy Chu comes out all of a sudden, and I'm like, I thought the segment was over like 3 times. I started writing all interrupt, and I had to backspace to go back to write more names. And I'm like, all right, Wendy, that's going to be the end. We can just go ahead and do this. Wendy goes ahead and talks about how she doesn't like Cora Jade, but that doesn't mean she has to name call, and she starts calling Cora Jade names. And then Tia Hale comes out. Why she needs to be involved with this, I have no idea.
I was waiting for you to say that. Once I saw her, I was like, I'm waiting for it to come.
I have no idea why she had to be out here. All she yells is girl fight, and everybody storms the ring and starts brawling. Out comes Isla Dawn, Alba Fire, and they start brawling. We'll get back to them in a second. Then out comes a multitude of other women, most of whom I couldn't decipher. I saw Sol Ruka. I saw Lash Legend. I didn't see a ton of other recognizable people in the brawl group. Did you?
Well, I saw Fallon, Kiana, Lash, Amari was there. So I saw Elektra. And I think that's about it, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, that's all I'm seeing. So.
Yeah. After this, we have Roxanne Perez come out, and she goes ahead and says that there's going to be a 20-woman battle royal that you guys don't have to fight about it now, and whoever wins the battle royal is going to have a title shot at Vengeance Day. Speaking of Vengeance Day is live February 4th, and they've sold about 2,000 tickets. So good news on that front. They've sold about half the tickets that they've intended, which is a positive thing for NXT, because I was honestly worried they weren't going to sell much of any. But as we get closer, I think we'll start getting more and more tickets sold as we get in there. Speaking of tickets sold and watching shows, we have In the Hot Seat podcast joining us, saying hello, Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you as well. Me and Astrid are both very much so looking forward to doing that episode with you in the near future before the Royal Rumble. But when we come back from the break, we have Isla Dawn and Alba Fire still going at it backstage. They're outside. They end up in the warehouse. This is a really fun brawl. This would have been a really fun match had it been the match. They do a really good job. The refs try to break it up. They do a lot of talking where they tell them that they need to stop, but they don't actually do anything about it. I honestly looked at my mother at one point. I'm like, He's like, well, how do you break these two women up? And I'm like, well, the first step would be getting in between the two of them. That would be step one, because they didn't even try to do that at all. What did you think of this before we go on to the fall, which we're gonna have to dissect because that was bad. Did you have
I
any
just kept
thoughts on the
thinking,
bro?
yeah, I just kept thinking, it's like, just ring the bell, forget about it, just keep going with it. Like, come on, they were already going at it as it was. It's like, there's no way you're gonna stop them to not do the match after it was happening. Um, but like, I thought it was interesting that if you notice, there was the girls in the ring that didn't get into the ring really. They were just going around it until they went back to the like backstage area of like what they call like the warehouse. But they were not involved in the battle royal. So like even though they were like they came out around the same time, they already made it seem like this is separate from what's going on in the ring too, which I thought was interesting to point out that they didn't even put them in the graphic either. But yeah, just like I thought it was really cool the way they started it because we don't get matches or like the match quote unquote starting the way it did, and it doesn't happen often with the ladies either. So it's like it was nice to see something different from them there.
Yeah. Then we have the fall, and oh, the fall. We have to talk about this, don't we? Right? Like, we don't want to, but this was bad. So, Isla Dawn and Alba Fire are fighting on a slightly raised section of thing. And Isla's about to fall, and she does really good with the whole, oh, I'm gonna fall. And then she grabs onto Alba. And Alba headbutts her, and that was really cool. And then she falls. And you can kind of hear the bag as she falls, but then you also hear the clattering of the chairs from the fake fall. And then you get to the picture and there's some wood in there, and I don't know where the wood came from because there's no sign of a table.
Mm-hmm.
And it's that really awkward, like, straight on, like, above her view. And it looks really weird. I didn't like that cut, I'll be honest.
Yeah, it makes you feel like even though she fell, that the referees were probably helping to make all the noise to make it seem like it was like really hard because even as they focused on Alba, they didn't really show her until she was on the ground, and it was like the in between there you didn't see any of it. So I was like, when I saw her the way she was reacting, I was like, I don't know if I like this, but yeah, the shot was really awkward though.
Yeah, and then we continue where Alba Fire tries to carry her out. I forget what the first item she was using to try to get her out of there was. Because she had her on something or in something in the beginning.
Was it the wheel thing? I forgot the name of it.
Well, we have the wheelbarrow at the end. But I feel like we had something before that. But either way, she basically, Alba Fire drags her to ringside in a wheelbarrow and goes ahead and throws her at ringside. And then they get in the ring and we finally get the bell. And I'm like, cool, all right, we have the bell. This is great. We can go ahead and start the match. And we do, and it's fun. Like, they got more time than I thought they would, considering they've had since 9 o'clock, because, this was basically the draw segment. And what a draw segment it was, like, these two girls fighting. They've made sure to make Alba Fire and Isla Dawn feel like a big deal. And I really like that. The match is great. It goes back and forth. Alba Fire hits a gory bomb, which leads to a 2 count, which I was really surprised by. I thought that would be the finish of the match. During the commercial break, now do you get the in-ad breaks, like where you can see the action in the break? Okay, because I don't know. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't. So I always ask.
Yeah.
At some point, Isla Dawn, the sadistic Randy Orton that she is, she goes down and she gets the wrench from the ring crew. Now, this wrench is made to be put through the turnbuckle post so you can go ahead and tighten the ring ropes so that all the ropes tighten up to the right level. She shoves it, like, in her finger and then, like, down Alba Fire's ring tape on her wrist, her wrist tape, and just starts twisting and pulling and yanking on it. It felt bad. I hurt. I didn't like that. Alba then sets up a table on the outside. She goes ahead and dives onto it, but she barely hits / misses
Yeah.
Isla. Like, I don't know which one it is, but it's not. It neither is good because Isla doesn't
Yeah.
break the table. So
No,
we
and it's
get
like, and you had also like Aladon was smiling, like looking at her while she was setting up. So she clearly could have moved. Like if you think
Mhm.
about it like this, she had time to move out of the way, but she let her do it. So when she fell, when she did the dive, I was like, oh, that was it. I I didn't like it.
but but kudos to them. They don't try to set up the same move. They go ahead
Yeah.
and quick
Hmm.
thinking. They right into a new spot. She grabs Isla, pulls her off the table, sets up a gory bomb, and hits an awful looking gory bomb that I would not want to take through the table. Rolls her in the ring and gets the 1, 2, 3. I like Vic Joseph has a key word in this though. He doesn't say that Alba Fire wins the match. Isla Dawn sacrificed herself to Alba Fire.
Hmm.
Is what more is coming from this? Because I'm intrigued. Because that's not something you normally say when somebody hits their finish.
Yeah, I know that aside from that, he said something else too when like Alba won, but not making it seem like Alba won at the same time, and just like, and it gave you the like, what else are you really doing with this? Because obviously, like I said, by the smiling, you could tell that she had enough time to like let it go and like keep going with the match, but she let her do the dive and then keep going to everything afterwards just to like so Alba could win it. So I was thinking that's interesting, like the wording they used about it. It's not like, oh, Alba's victorious, so Alba just won over Isla Dawn. It was like the wording itself was really interesting. Um, I thought the part with the toolbox was really kind of funny too because you can see when she kind of took her hand away when she did it and she just closed it anyway. And I was like, I want to see if the fans have any videos from that point of view because I would like to see that. Um, but yeah, I thought the wording of it was interesting. I wanted to go back and listen to it, but like I'm glad you caught it because yeah, I was wondering like in the direction of the storyline. It's like where's this gonna really go afterwards? Because I really have no idea after she wins. So I don't know.
Yeah, but like I said, overall it was a really well done set of segments. It was definitely extreme. I finally figured out the resolutions part today, which um, I'm sad to say it took me a whole week to figure out their little play on words there. So
Yeah, it took a whole year to figure it out.
no, well, yeah, I guess. I mean, I didn't understand it last year, but I did this year, so maybe. Um, we get Grayson Waller backstage with Mackenzie Mitchell pumping up the main event segment, which is going to be the Waller effect. He said nothing of great interest here. More importantly, I want to go ahead and get into the inside look into the Indus versus Creed Brothers match. I really liked this because it did something that NXT has never done when it comes to Indus. Told us who they are. There's an interesting thing with Indus that most people don't know. Veer Mahan is a famous person beyond the wrestling world. Veer Mahan was a former Major League Baseball pitcher who was drafted after playing in India. There's a movie based off of him and his life already in production, and I believe it was a big movie in the States. I can't tell you right now what movie it is because I honestly can't remember.
Hmm. Hold
But
on, I think I know which one, but let me see.
but I know that there's a movie based off of a variation of the life of Veer Mahan. So I liked seeing how big of a stars they are in India and them taking that. Like, look, we're royalty. People love us in India. But
Hmm.
here, nobody cares about us. But they care about you. And that's why we targeted the Creeds. And I'm like, cool. Now you've given us a reason as to why they're targeting the Creeds. And you've given us something interesting to dig into. And the Creeds are like, you guys talk about this being about respect, but you jumped us from behind. That's not about respect. You go ahead and you keep doing all these things and making us wait for our match. And Indushare's like, well, yeah, we wanted you at 100%. We don't want any bullshit. We don't want any loopholes for you to go through if and when we beat you. And I really like how this has set up this whole match in a much different way. Almost painting Indushare as a possible face team coming out of it as opposed to the heels.
Yeah. Okay, I found the movie. If I'm
Yes.
not mistaken, it says it's Disney produced, so it's called Million Dollar Arm, and it's
Okay.
not only him, but it's a bunch of other players too from their years as baseball players. It says the movie earned a total of $39 million in total when it was
So
released.
so it made some money. It wasn't the biggest hit in the world, but it's a movie that's lightly based around the life of Veer Mahan in the major leagues, and it makes him seem like a bigger deal.
Hmm.
If they would have done this going into Veer Mahan is coming to Raw, it would have really done wonders for Veer Mahan coming to Raw.
Yeah.
What did you think about this? I know you're a big fan of Julius, and you love the Creeds. What are your thoughts? Are we still in are we still in agreement that this is going to be a squash match next week?
Yeah, especially like at the beginning, I forgot what they showed a clip of like them doing a match beforehand from in this year, and the way they said it's like, oh, like we're gonna destroy you guys and everything. Like the way that they worded it out during the whole voiceover, I kept thinking, yeah, this is definitely it. Of like kind of like we're teaching them that lesson of like respect as the way we're respected elsewhere. So I thought that was interesting to point out from like them, and like I like seeing the background stories of these people. I was like, this is the kind of stuff I want to see when they debut. The first couple of weeks is like, if you want me to know who they are and like kind of have a connection to them, show me who they are in vignettes like this. Like this would have been so nice to see, like the first 2 or 3 weeks and they reunited. Because if anybody that hasn't watched it before, this is a good way to get introduced to them. If they started watching, it's like I don't remember Indus here. I don't know why. I really don't. So this really helped me out to like remember a little bit of them too. And it's like it's the little things that they should have done beforehand. But either way, I'm glad they did it.
Mind you, they don't mention that Indusher has been on the NXT roster before. They have no mention of the fact of what happened when Keith Lee won both the titles at the Great American Bash. There are zero mentions of anything like that. No Stokely Hathaway. Malcolm Bivens is not talked about in any of this. It's like this is their first time in NXT. Fine. I mean, at least this time they're only rewriting their own history as opposed to other companies' history, which is I can deal with it when they're rewriting their own history at least. The show goes back into first gear as Oro Mensah comes to the ring and is attacked by Big Body Javi. I do have one question about this match, and it's meant for you, Astrid. Why
Okay.
on God's green earth, if Oro Mensah is doing a party boy gimmick, is he wearing ski goggles to the ring?
I he had a scarf or something similar to that. That's what it looked like to me. I wasn't sure. I was like, when he came out, I was like, aside from the gear, I don't understand the rest of it. I really don't. Like, it doesn't go with what he's selling us. And I kept thinking of like when I saw the little like VIP kind of line. It just reminded me back of what you said about No Way Jose, and I was like, yeah, I don't know if I like the way this is going so far.
Just wanted to big shout out to HPC2 Sweet. Thank you for joining us. And Barry brings up a good point. Did they mention that Sangha was a Bollywood actor as well? They did. I got the movie part confused and I thought it was all about Mahan. But yes, they mentioned that Sangha was also a Bollywood actor. He was a wrestler in the Deadly. Yeah. There's a lot of good stuff with these two guys. TNA's failed Indian promotion is something that I want to see documentaries of later, because the failed Indian promotions of WWE and TNA Impact are stories to be told someday, because it led to Jinder Mahal being world champion, and we all know what a wet fart that was for a lot of people. I still believe it was a good idea to attempt it. I don't think it was executed well, but I like the idea of him winning the world championship from Randy Orton. The story from there doesn't work, but the beginning of it is good. It also gives us the moment where Randy Orton almost kills a Singh, which is always fun to watch. Um, the match was okay. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. Oro Mensah versus Javier Bernal. Javier Bernal is growing on me, and I don't like that. He's more
Somebody clip this.
he's becoming more entertaining, and his in-ring style actually works. I mean, he loses. Oro Mensah does pick up the win.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm starting to get invested a little bit in the Javier Bernal thing. He needs a character revamp of some kind, but like they need to give him a direction.
Yeah.
Because being annoying dude number 55, douchey annoying dude 55, isn't enough of a direction to really keep going. But there's something there, and I'm curious what comes next. Mm-hmm. It just sucks that he's a major part of the Latin representation on this show, as we're getting ready to bring in Dragon Lee to NXT. Now, granted, this was not announced on the show tonight, but we can mention it because it has happened since the last time we were on the air. Dragon Lee and NXT have confirmed that Dragon Lee is headed to NXT. We don't know what his new name is going to be. We don't know how many dates he still has to work with AAA, because he is currently one half of their tag team champions as they beat FTR. And in his post-match conversation, he announced that he'd signed with NXT, and everybody was like, wait, what? What do you think about Dragon Lee on NXT? Let's take a moment here while talking, because it's Javier Bernal. There's not much to talk about with Oro and Javier Bernal. So let's talk about something more interesting, and Dragon Lee.
I think it's good timing because if you think about it, I feel like Legado had that really spot of being the representation for Latinos in the show, and they just got ripped away in a way that didn't have anybody to really kind of in a way replace them. So I think it's having somebody like Dragon Lee, who's already big enough in Mexico, brings a large crowd of Mexico to watch NXT, just to watch him. Now, would they follow him after his career in AAA? If he decides to do both, who knows? They let him do it. But I think it'll be interesting to see not only like Dragon Lee representing NXT and bring that Latino representation on TV that we're really lacking in NXT, because Big Javi's not really doing much of it. But if they decide to have that partnership with AAA, then that will be interesting too, because if he becomes champion in NXT, he takes the title with him and vice versa. If he, takes that AAA title to the NXT showing, then that will be interesting to see as well. So I'm looking forward to that.
Triple H seems a lot more willing to do partnerships. We're going to see, in a few hours, we're going to see Carl Anderson wrestling in Japan as a contracted WWE superstar under a current contract for the first time ever, wrestling at Wrestle Kingdom. Mm-hmm. Because Jericho doesn't count because he wasn't under contract with Vince at the time. Yeah. Brock Lesnar and Kurt Angle were not under contract when they went to Japan and became the IWGP champion. AJ Styles came afterwards. No WWE superstar under contract has ever wrestled at Wrestle Kingdom. And this week we had Nakamura versus the Great Muta, which was a fun match with a really interesting ending. And then Great Muta ruined it with a post-match press conference. Yep. And it made Nakamura feel like a big deal. And now we've got Carl Anderson, not to mention the Sasha Banks of it all.
Yep.
And you can catch up with all of that on Turnbuckle Talk, as they talked extensively with Andre about Wrestle Kingdom and more importantly about the Sasha Banks stuff. But there's a lot of back and forth and give and take right now with Triple H, willing to make some things happen. Signing a AAA star who's currently holding a AAA title. Carl Anderson currently holding a New Japan title. The Forbidden Door is now creaked open in WWE. I don't want to say it's open. It's not fully open. They haven't kicked the door down, but they're testing the waters. They're making some attempts. And that's the best thing. Because as I've said before, I may not watch AEW all the time, but if AEW is doing well, WWE is going to continue to do well, because they're best when they have competition. And competition breeds excellence. So, hopefully, with a little bit of talent from one company, back and forth, big things can possibly happen. This month we have the Royal Rumble. With all of these little working deals with people popping in and out, this could be a Rumble to remember.
Can we get Mickie James as champion again, please?
No.
Yes.
We can't have nice things, no. We then get JBBJ backstage, and Jensen is very excited that Fallon won her bar and that she won the match last week. And there's no mention whatsoever of the dissension from last week. And I'm like, fucking hell. I was literally dumbfounded. No mention whatsoever about the dissension between Briggs and Jensen last week. And all the irritation. And the one talking isn't Briggs, who you think would be the one bigging up Fallon. It's Jensen. which makes no sense. I also didn't like Fallon's outfit, but that's another story for another day. And then Kiana James comes in another outfit that I didn't like, that it didn't feel like it made her look at all attractive. But they don't have to look attractive, but it didn't accentuate anything about her. And the key thing that they've done with her is make her look important when she's on screen. And it didn't do that this time, and I thought it was weird. And she congratulates Fallon on winning the match, and she says good luck in the Battle Royal next week. They're both going to be in it. And then she tells Jensen to text her. And he goes, oh, you know I will. And for the briefest moment, as they're cutting, you hear Briggs look at Fallon and go, when did that happen?
Yeah.
And I'm like,
I love that. Yeah.
And I'm like, have you not been watching the show for like 8 months? Like this has been happening.
Remember he said they're gonna do watch-alongs and the parties when they're champions. So no, he's not watching the show.
No, but like he's been there when we hear, you know, Kiana coming on to Jensen, right? Like it's not like Briggs is missing for all of those segments.
I know.
Right?
I'm saying he's not paying attention to his surroundings or everything that's happening.
No, he's not paying attention to.
No.
And Fallon seemed surprised too, which made me worse because I thought she paid attention to stuff.
Right? At least I understand. Yeah.
Ashley, we have a question for you specifically. HPC Too Sweet is asking, I heard you're doing a watch along for Wrestle Kingdom. Now, Astrid is not staying up for the Wrestle Kingdom.
I wish I could, but I can't. I work tomorrow. Yeah. If I didn't, I would have.
Both of us are working. However, on these All Elite channels, you will be able to find our New Japan and Stardom team of Andre C. and Mel Ball Collins, who will definitely be doing a watch along. They're starting at 1 a.m. Eastern Standard Time as they talk about stuff heading into Wrestle Kingdom tonight. They'll be watching along Wrestle Kingdom the entirety of the show. So definitely go ahead and pull up your OLE podcast at 1 a.m. Eastern Time, whatever time zone that might be, wherever you are, to go ahead and catch it as two wonderful, knowledgeable people who watch everything Stardom and New Japan are going to be covering that far better than I or Astrid ever could in our wildest dreams.
Yep.
And trust me, there'll be plenty of dreams as Wrestle Kingdom goes on because I'm not staying up at 4 o'clock in the morning to watch it.
I mean, it'll be happening when I wake up. That's a different story. But
I will definitely be watching it. I will not be watching it live. I will be catching it at some point tomorrow.
Yeah. Probably
while I work. Hopefully my bosses aren't watching. That being said, we then have Andre Chase coming out for the match with Drew Gulak. Oh, crap. I almost got through the whole show without doing it.
Yeah.
Oh, I've already had plenty of days off. We had a holiday. It's the end of the month. I gotta get some stuff done. I wish. But don't worry. There'll be plenty of people here talking Wrestle Kingdom. Just go ahead and check it out. These people are fantastic. Gulak comes out for his match with Andre Chase. But first, in only our second but first thing of the night, we get the NXT. Now, I didn't read this wrong on the screen. It said hashtag Creeper, right?
Yeah, I think the graphic itself, it looked kind of confusing at first because it almost made it seem like Katana sent that. But then commentary explained it of like, oh, this is the video of like Casey Square at the medical office. And I guess they say, oh, somebody sent the video to the NXT account. So it's like somebody sent that video and they just posted it. It's like somebody sent it doesn't mean you posted it. It's somebody in the medical office. Like that's such a privacy issue. But I digress. But yeah, they made it seem
like it's KC
like
Squared. Nobody cares about what they were talking about anyways.
Oh my goodness. But it made it seem like Katana kind of wrote it of like the graphic. It looked kind of that way. So I thought that was confusing at first.
Yeah. But I mean, the NXT Creeper section, again, I would have high hopes for this if we didn't have the debacle that was Scripps. So, yes, I'm excited to see what kind of GTV style thing they can do with somebody backstage posting information. Why do I feel like this is Lash Legend? Why
I was
do
thinking
I
of
feel
who doesn't have anything going on.
Lash Legend? Oh, or as Paris says, effing Reggie. We then find out as Gulak comes to the ring, we find out that this match is replacing Dempsey versus Hank because Dempsey wasn't cleared. He had some kind of shoulder injury. This is a fun back and forth. The guys are, just kind of feeling each other out and playing it out and doing a little bit of the graps and just doing some wrestling back and forth, some old-fashioned wrestling back and forth. And then Drew Gulak hits a basement dropkick. Andre Chase hits the basement dropkick, and Drew Gulak doesn't like it. And Gulak starts going off on him. At some point, Dempsey throws the sling off. Gulak then locks in the Gulak for the win. I had to really try to write that in my notes because my notes kept trying to write Gulak every time I tried to write Gulak, and I had to really work on it to make it work the way I wanted it to. What did you think of this match? Because I know how much I love this match, but talk about your thoughts.
Yeah, I like this one. I wish it would have been longer. I like the back and forth. They didn't even show the sportsmanship in at first, and they're like, let's see how this goes. But I like also having the detail of showing Charlie backstage of first he's watching the match and then he's taking the sling off as the match is happening. And having Walker there was watching Gulak and learning from him versus we have people learning from Chase University with Chase on the other side. So it's we have teacher versus teacher kind of moment here. But I like the fact that towards the end he doesn't want to let go of the Gulak though. And even Walker tells him later on and just you kind of had that locked in a little bit too long there. And he said, but a win is a win. It's it doesn't matter what you say. I'm just going to keep going because I won. And even the way of the way Duke and Thea are looking at him when everything's happening. And Walker kind of looks I don't want to say confused, but in a moment of trying to take it all in of did you keep that on a little bit too long? And they really looked upset about the way it played out. But I like the match though. I wish that would have been a little bit longer than what it was. Because I was having fun with it and it just ended.
I think this is another match that got the kibosh of Carmelo Hayes and Apollo Crews deciding they were going 20 minutes. And granted, I'd much rather have the 20 minutes for Carmelo Hayes and Apollo Crews than Drew Gulak and Andre Chase. As much as I love Andre Chase, the teachable moment thing was really funny because Gulak played along with it. Gulak keep making eyes at Duke Hudson. Yeah. There was a couple moments where he kept he would have Chase in a hold and just kind of look over at Duke and nod. I like that. Like you mentioned, the fact of Hank not being thrilled after last week with the first two guys, him saying, as soon as they tap, you release the hold. As soon as you tap, they release the hold. And then with the third guy, once he got shown up, he's like, no, I hold it in longer. And this day, Andre Chase showed him up by doing the drop kick, and he got mad, and it just kept going. It's just a lot of interesting intertwining storylines. If only the people that weren't Andre Chase and Drew Gulak were more entertaining. Because Charlie Dempsey, while very good in the ring, has zero charisma. Duke Hudson, while being okay in the ring, has more charisma and zero character.
Can we fusion them?
And then we have Tia Hale, and she's just awful and needs to go away.
No.
We get Wesley backstage with Mackenzie Mitchell, and long story short in this one, because they talk about his 2022 like she does with everybody else who did something in 2022. That, this how are you going to take on this new year? And he's like, I'm going to be ringside next week to watch these two guys go at it because that sounds like fun. They both want to come after me, and I get that, and that's great. But they seem to want to beat each other up more. So maybe I should be there. Maybe it should be a number one contenders match for my North American Championship. And I'm like, all right, cool. They're not going to make us wait. They're just going to tell us it's a North American title number one contenders match. Fun. Gets the point across. Speaking of people being at the commentary booth, we have Xavier Woods adding commentary with Booker T and Vic Joseph. And poor Vic Joseph. They both tried to put him in the middle. He didn't like it. I've never heard an announcer say, I don't want to be put in the middle of this more than the two of them. We are talking obviously about Kofi Kingston versus Joe Gacy, which is the main event match of the week. This was great. This was a whole lot of fun. It didn't go as long as I wanted again, but that's par for the course of NXT. A lot of these TV matches don't go as long as you want them to. There's a better match to be had. And I'm kind of hoping that Gacy's in the tag team match. Because you know this is setting up for a tag title match. And I kind of hope that Gacy's in that match. Because I think it would be a lot of fun if they try to, as the Schism, try to blame him for the loss. By saying if they had had Fowler and Jagger in the match, that they would have won the match. What did you think about this match?
Yeah, that's another one that I was really enjoying, and it just ended like not. I don't want to say abruptly, but it just felt like it did in a way. And I kept thinking like, what is next? Because I noticed there was still a little bit of time. Sorry. And then I forgot about the Grayson Waller fight. It's like, why does that have to be really like the main event? Like this could have been the end of it, and I would have been fine with it. Like why? But it was enjoyable match. I like having like the little bits of like Ava being, a distraction to Kofi at the beginning of the match. And like we mentioned, they have mentioned the Rock's eyebrow in the commentary table with Xavier too. There's like those little things, but I love having the group being a factor to Kofi in the match at the beginning of it all. Especially Ava, and I like seeing her in that role with the group too. But overall, yeah, I enjoyed the match though.
I almost thought Big E was coming back tonight. They set it up so much that I thought he was coming back. Early in commentary, they talk about the New Day and the Brotherhood. And Vic asks, is Big E one of the NXT Tag Team Champions? And Woods says, of course he is. Why wouldn't he be? He's part of the New Day. And then Booker T says, and I quote, as far as I know, and I quote, Big E is as done as the New Day's title reign. And I'm like, oh, Booker, that's not nice. And then there's a moment in this match where Jagger, Reed, and Rip Fowler are on the outside staring down Woods. And Woods has his title in his hand to defend himself as it's 1-on-2. And they have their back to the crowd. And I was like, oh my God, is Big E going to come out and just pancake the two of them? I'm like, I know he can't wrestle yet. He's months away from wrestling. But how cool would it have been to just have a moment where he just knocks the two guys down and is just there? But no, It was not to be. Kofi jumps out of the ring, goes ahead and rolls back in the ring. Gacy tries to hit him with something. Gacy misses. The Trouble in Paradise for the win. The other line on commentary that I noticed, where you talked about it with the Rock's elbow, with the Rock's eyebrow, it was really funny because at that point they were talking about what was on the list this week for. We didn't mention it earlier, but in the New Day segment with the Schism, the beginning of that is the New Day giving the new list of things that Pretty Deadly have to get in order to get a tag team title rematch. And one of the items was the Big Boss Man's nightstick, and the other was the entire eyebrow of The Rock. And I just think it's funny that when they mentioned that, the camera instantly pans to Ava Raine on the outside. Like, it's a wide shot, but you see them pull the frame a little bit just to get Ava in frame. And again, it's more nods to Ava being The Rock's daughter without telling us that she's The Rock's daughter. I really like how NXT does this. We get Gulak super psyched up about his win. Dempsey comes in and says that whether it's injury or not, it's going to be him versus Hank next week. And I'm like, great. So there's a dud on the card next week. Awesome.
Bathroom break. I'm kidding. No.
No, probably will. I wouldn't be surprised. There wasn't a whole lot to this. Hank is questioning whether or not he should have let go of it. This is when, as you said, Gulak says a win is a win is a win. It doesn't matter as long as you get the win. And then we get the Grayson Waller effect. I'm going to do the next week's card after we do this, but we're going to talk about the Grayson Waller effect. It was fine. Grayson said some stuff. Braun talked. Not well, but he talked.
Yeah.
Was there anything in this that's worth mentioning?
I think only the last part, because I feel like it's what really fueled Braun, of like he's trying to like list of like Grayson's viral moments.
Okay,
we're gonna start with there.
I was hoping you'd start here because there's two parts to this, and I'm like, if she skips to part 2, I'm gonna have to stop her and go back to part 1.
No.
Okay, The viral
Yeah.
moments, yes.
So he starts with the viral moment. So quote unquote, this is what Braun said. This is what I wrote down. He's like, you were hitting Gargano from behind the way he did. You did the dive from the War Games match.
Mm-hmm.
You were jumping from the ladder as Donna deliver, which is the one with the elbow thing that we thought he broke his arm, but he didn't. And then he just goes like, "Those are like your moments," but I was like, "It's nothing like permanent. It's just like little moments of like they last you a couple minutes and they're over." And then Waller goes like compared to you, it's like, "Well, you're stealing your dad's gimmick though." It's like that's all you do. That's all you are right now. And like Braun was about to leave the ring when he literally just turned around and like, hell no. And he just went after him the way he did. And the way he did, and I like the dive though when he dived into the outside onto Grayson. I like that part, but I like how he like people started doing the barking and like you hear the fans barking in the background when that happened. Like the way he reacted, he went, like no, I was like, it's true though, bro. I mean, just like that's all you right now. So I thought it was accurate. Like when he said that, I thought it was pretty funny too.
Yeah. I do like how he does the dive Logan Paul style with the phone. I really hope there's video footage of it. Again, you know, Logan Paul does something and people mimic Logan Paul. It is, you know, I think he's a trash human being, but as an entertainer, he's a trendsetter. There are things that he does that people follow. And obviously, Braun Breaker is a fan of Logan Paul. He saw Logan Paul dive off the top rope and he goes, well, I'm too big to do that. So maybe I can just do a dive, you know, over the top rope with the phone. I'm glad he didn't top dollar it. That's always nice. You don't want to end up like Top Dollar when you're doing a dive over the top rope. I did see a great tweet. Speaking of Top Dollar, I had to bring it up because I wanted to bring up this tweet where it goes, Top Dollar, if he gets in the Royal Rumble, is absolutely going to win because Lord knows that man can't go over the top rope.
Mm-hmm.
I saw that and I'm like, I have to work that into NXT at some point. But that was this week's NXT. And it was great. I really enjoyed this week's NXT. The show really flew by. Things were a little short some places, but nothing felt like it overstayed its welcome. The women were chunked into one segment, but by God, that one enhanced segment was a good 20-25 minutes of the show. It was a chunk, and it talked about everybody. If you're a woman who's doing anything on this roster, with the exception of KC Squared, you were involved in that segment. And by the way, they are the only two that I can think of that weren't in that segment in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
But next week is New Year's Evil. Astrid and I will be here right after New Year's Evil covering the show, as we always do like any NXT. And next week we can count on seeing Dijak versus Tony D'Angelo, Dempsey versus Hank, Indusher versus the Creeds. For the NXT Championship, Grayson Waller versus Braun Breaker. And because there's a lot of people in it, Asher was kind enough to
And before that, and then Pretty Deadly said they would do the gauntlet against three teams that I noticed I didn't put a graphic for next week. I don't know if
and
it'll
that's
be
why
next
I
week or
left
not.
it off, because there's no official word as to whether or not that's actually happening next week. That was mentioned, but it was never confirmed that it's going to be next week.
Yeah. So if it happens, a gauntlet of Pretty Deadly against three other teams. That may happen.
And I have the list. Here is the graphic for the NXT. Oh, look at her. She's covered up by the microphone. I don't even want to take it down, but I will. All right. So, from left to right, top to bottom, we have Gigi Dolan, JC Jane, Ivy, Tatum, Jakara, Danny Palmer, Valentina Feroz, Cora Jade, Zoe Stark, Kiana James, Elektra Lopez, Lash Legend, Amari Miller, Soul, Ruka, Wendy Chu, Indy Hartwell, Fallon Henley, Nikita Lyons, Lyra the Bird Lady, and Tia Hale. Those are 20 people, which is interesting because I assumed that there was going to be some missing people on the graphic so that we'd have the ability to... Oh, hold on. So we'd have the ability to have a few fill-ins here and there. But there's 20 people listed. Those who aren't listed, who I think may end up in this battle royal, because there's a bunch of, oops, we replaced you kind of people in this. Yes, I'm looking at you, Jakara. Yes, I'm looking at you, Danny Palmer. Yes, I'm looking at you, Valentina Feroz, who I wrote down Leon. Sol Ruka, Amari Miller, Lash Legend. All of you were replaceable. Those who could replace them: Casey Squared, Alba Fire, Isla Dawn, because Alba and Isla were specifically mentioned by commentary as to not being in it, but fighting in a way that they're not going to participate in the thing.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought it was interesting that neither one of them were pictured in the graphic.
No.
More importantly, somebody who's expected to make their return at New Year's Evil was not pictured as well. And that's Tiffany Stratton, who I think is going to not only be in this, but could potentially win this. Because you know Battle Royals are always great when somebody who's not even on the picture wins the match.
Yep.
Cue Zoe Stark.
Yeah. Plus, I noticed, I think she said a 20-woman battle royal, but I think in the picture itself, they didn't put the number, which I thought was interesting. If you notice, it says Women's Championship, number one contender battle royal. Winner challenges Roxanne Perez at Vengeance Day. But there's no number mentioned. Versus like when she announced it, she said 20. And I said, is it really going to be 20 then? Because like not having the number mentioned is like made me think about it. But it just gave me of like I told you, this gave me vibes of SmackDown right now before the Charlotte arrival. I will clarify. It was always like 6-pack challenges and a 6-woman gauntlet. All these ways of like, we don't know who to pick. We'll just see how it goes, and then we'll pick somebody because we have no idea what to do at the moment. And that's the like thing that I don't like about it, because it just gives me the vibes of like, we don't know what to do. We're just gonna put everybody together and figure it out by the time the match happens. Which is the part that I'm not a fan of. It just reminds me of SmackDown before Charlotte arrived, unfortunately. And just like, we don't know who to go with, so we're going to include everybody. So it's equal opportunity in a way. But
I think, but that's the thing I think that differs here is I think they have an idea of where they're going with this. They have Cora Jade, who is lightning focused on that championship and having the potential, I still think is probably one of two challengers for Stand and Deliver. You have people like JC and Gigi who have a clear focus, who have said that the women's championship is their clear focus because of the fact of what happened to their leader. We're not going to mention our leader's name.
we don't know who she is, though.
We're just going to mention that she's gone and that you took her away from us. We're going to go ahead and throw Zoe Stark. Zoe Stark has a chance to go ahead and get in there for the championship against Roxanne Perez. I can totally see that. Like, there's a group of 4 or 5 that are your mainstays that are potential winners of this thing. Yeah. But like I said, you have somebody like Alba Fire or Isla Dawn, who I think could easily win. You have a Tiffany Stratton, who could be like a last-minute replacement for somebody in this match. There's a reason why you have, again, I will go through, Jakara, Danny Palmer, Valentina Feroz, Amari Miller. There's a reason why you have those 4 in this match. They're there because you might need to swap some people out, and you want to make sure you know who's actually going to be there next week.
Yeah, I saw a report that supposedly like one other person I was thinking about was that we haven't seen Blair Davenport in a while. So I thought about like supposedly she has visa issues. Who knows if like by next week they'll be solved or like they're getting worked on. So that could be another one that she could be in there as a surprise entrant as well, because we haven't seen her in quite a while. But the only difference between this and SmackDown is like I feel like in this one, it's not like in SmackDown that I can say, oh, clearly Liv Morgan's gonna win, or clearly this one's gonna win. Of like when this one, I feel like there's so many possibilities. I wouldn't know who to pick at the moment because there's so many choices, which I like. It just like the match itself, it reminds me of what's happening in SmackDown before it. Though.
Well, too bad you don't know who to pick, because guess what? You're only going to have a couple minutes to think about it, because we're doing some quick fire predictions that I didn't tell you we were doing. Who is going to be the number 1 contender for the North American Championship? Is it going to be Dijak? Is it going to be Tony D? Or are we looking at a triple threat match? Is this match ending in a no contest?
Yeah, I think it's a triple threat.
I think Dijak wins this match. I don't know if Dijak only goes up against Wesley, but I wholeheartedly think that we're getting to a point where we're going to be having a triple threat at some point.
Mhm.
Dewdrop would be someone that would be good for that. Agreed. Dewdrop is somebody who could pop in. We haven't seen her in a while on any roster.
I think she's another one that have visa issues apparently. So
Yeah. Those folks at our local establishment are telling us don't forget to stay with the stream after taking over. We'll be rating Jessica Havoc following the show. That'll be fun. So Tony Dempsey, Charlie Dempsey, and Tony D, Charlie Dempsey, they're written right after each other. Dempsey versus Hank. Who's winning?
Dempsey.
Indus Sher versus the Creeds. I think we both have the Indus Sher in a slaughter.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have a new NXT champion next week? Is Grayson Waller dethroning Braun Breaker?
I doubt it.
Parrish jumping in, telling us that Piper Niven, aka Dewdrop, has been injured, and that he thinks that she will be returning at the Royal Rumble. Good to think about. I did not. It is interesting that there's so many names that are out there that could just debut at the Rumble. As, like Tiffany Stratton may not be coming back to NXT. She may be going straight to the main roster. I don't think she's ready. But don't put it past them.
Yeah.
And then the 20 women that we know.
Wait, who did you pick though?
For who? For Grayson Waller versus Braun Breaker?
Yeah.
I think we have a new champion. I think Grayson Waller wins this, believe it or not. I do.
Yeah. Okay. I'm writing it down just in case.
Oh, okay. No, I think there's only so far you can go with Braun Breaker. And I think you have more money going into Vengeance Day and more money especially going into Stand and Deliver with a match like Grayson Waller versus Carmelo Hayes. Because, like, picture this. And I know this is me fantasy booking something that's not going to happen. But picture this. You've got... We do know of some people who be in attendance for WrestleMania weekend. There's this wonderful group of people who are going down from New York all the way down to Hollywood for WrestleMania this year. The Wrestling Club. Who does the Wrestling Club absolutely adore? Carmelo Hayes. Yeah. Who does the Wrestling Club absolutely hate? And they've gone back and forth with on Twitter and in videos to the point where WWE has made sure to make mention of it.
Yeah.
Grayson Waller. What better match to happen at Stand and Deliver with the Wrestling Club live to crown Carmelo Hayes as the NXT champion than Carmelo Hayes versus Grayson Waller. To do that, I think you flip the title here and you do the rematch at Vengeance Day so that there's no Braun Breaker in sight so he can be at WrestleMania and you can do Hayes versus Waller. Again, I'm fantasy booking and it's going to get me in trouble.
Yeah.
But it's such a sweet story.
Yeah.
Parrish jumping in. What if the main card women enter this Rumble? My pick would be Lacey Evans or Tamina or possibly Dana. Fucking Dana Brooke.
I was waiting for that.
The problem with Braun Breaker is the crowds don't seem to care much about him. So the crowd loves and doesn't love the charisma vacuum that is Braun Breaker. Like, he's not awful. He can cut a promo, but he doesn't cut a great promo.
No.
And he's good in the ring, but he's not great in the ring. And he doesn't... There's nothing in his moveset that makes you get behind him. Not like a Grayson Waller, there's so much in his moveset that makes you want to boo this man. So it's fine. It works. Carmelo Hayes, there are moves in that moveset that make you want to cheer him and make you want to boo him. So it works. But the charisma vacuum has none of that. And I really want that to be Braun the Charisma Vacuum Breaker. Because I think that works. Who are you picking for that match?
I said Braun.
Oh, okay. And then in the Battle Royal, whom you picking? We all know who I'm picking. We don't have to ask.
Were you picking Tiffany?
No. Well, yes. Realistically, I'm picking Tiffany.
Uh-huh.
In my heart, in my
Oh,
heart,
yeah.
Nikita Lyons.
Okay, do you want me to put Nikita or Tiffany? Decide.
Um, uh, since this is being recorded, please put Nikita Lyons.
Okay.
In the post chat, I'll
Uh,
tell you to put an asterisk next to that and put Tiffany.
I'm pouring Cora as mine. Or do you want to
Okay.
do two picks if there's a lot of women
Yeah,
though,
we can
just
do
in
two
case?
picks. There's 20 women. We
Okay.
can do plenty
So
of
we'll keep
picks.
you Nikita and Tiffany.
Tiffany.
Okay. I'll do Cora and Zoe. So, there you
Interesting
go.
that the whole promo started out with Toxic Attraction saying that they're going to get they don't make resolutions, they get revenge. And neither one of us are picking them to be the number one contender. That says a lot for what Toxic
I
Attraction is
can't
going to
breathe.
do
Don't
in
make me
NXT.
laugh.
That being said, we're going to go ahead and play you a quick video talking about what wonderful things you can see on OLE this week. We'll wrap up with whatever might not be on the video we'll tell you about. And then we will go ahead and plug our sponsors because I haven't done that.
Like a shadow next to me, like a voice inside my head. It's like a fight that I cannot win. I'm falling,
frustrated, intoxicated. I know I'm losing myself. I can't take it anymore.
but I'm not done. I'm not done. I won't give up until the end.
But I won't fall. I'll stand awake. I know it's not over, even if I'm closer to the end.
So yes, you can find all the wonderful things that are listed there. One of the things that was not listed there that I want to make sure people know about, shortly after we go off the air, about an hour and a half from now, we're going to have Andre and Melball, that they talk all things New Japan and Stardom for our wonderful group. And they are going to be covering Wrestle Kingdom in its entirety as a watch party. They're not going to be showing the event. You're going to need to get New Japan World to go ahead and watch the actual wrestling, but go ahead and talk about it with our New Japan people as they go ahead and cover that. It is going to be a fantastic time. If I wasn't sleeping, I'd be watching. With that being said, Astrid, go ahead and tell all the fine people where we can find... Actually, you know what? Hold that thought. We're going to go ahead and plug our sponsors at Rogue Energy. You can go to rogueenergy.com, or you can go ahead and scan that QR code just below Astrid, and you can go ahead... Yeah, right there. You can go ahead and get 10% off your order if you use the promo code OLEPODS. Again, OLEPODS get you 10% off your order if you go to rogueenergy.com. Rogue Energy is fantastic energy supplements. It's what's going to be keeping Andre and Melball going tonight as they go all night long through Wrestle Kingdom. I know they're going to be drinking their Rogue Energy. They love the blood orange flavor. My favorite's still the watermelon flavor. I've yet to find one better than the watermelon. It's fantastic. But go ahead and find out for yourself. When you get a shaker, you get a couple flavors that you get to try. They have a free trial pack that you can go ahead and try a couple different flavors for yourself and just pay shipping. It's a wonderful product. They do wonderful things. They're great people, and they make all the content here possible. Now, Astrid, that I've remembered to plug our wonderful sponsors, go ahead and tell people where they can find you for the rest of this week.
You can find me on my Twitter, Astrid Pizarro, Instagram, Astrid Pizarro 20. I don't think I said it last time, but I have my episode with Ella on a wrestling gal. We were talking about a fantasy booking Evolution 2, so check that out. Then I have an NXT review with Women's Wrestling Talk should be coming out during the weekend. I was on vacation. I was sick on top of it, so that didn't help. And then after that, next week again with you doing taking over. I was gonna say doing Tuesday. It's on Tuesday, whatever. And then Thursday doing Making an Impact with Cody though.
Yeah.
And Friday I think we're gonna be live probably for Ladies Wrestling Showcase, hopefully.
And speaking of Lady Wrestling Showcase, if you haven't already caught the audio form of that, help push Astrid up the charts. I believe she's in the top 20, battling it out with the likes of Renee Paquette and Ella of a Wrestling Gal and all kinds of other wonderful and not so wonderful things like Jim Cornette Experience in the audio form. So go ahead and go to Spotify and go ahead and check out Ladies Wrestling Showcase, as they are putting on wonderful numbers up there, and it's a wonderful show that you should be watching. That being said, for me, you can find me on Twitter at edfries12584. You can find me on Twitch at edfries2002. You can find me tomorrow co-hosting alongside Andre C. as we talk Marvel. We are doing Marvel Talk Returns for the first time in 2023. We're going to be laying out the entirety of what we have planned and the things that we're going to be covering in the year 2023. We'll break down more about what things we think are going to happen in the coming year with all the different titles. But more importantly, we're also going to be going ahead and telling you what Marvel Talk will look like going forward, as we've made a little bit of a change to how the format of the show is going to be. So go ahead and catch me there tomorrow, 6 p.m. Eastern Time.
What? In your end awards, you just happened, what, last week? Sorry, my timing is off.
I did. Over the last Friday, we did have the year-end awards. I brought in most of Astrid's co-hosts, with bringing in Melball to cover New Japan and Stardom, to bring in Cody to cover Impact. I covered WWE and NXT, and my good friend Lauren Goodnight came in and stole the show covering AEW. It was a fantastic time. We had a great time. That show is available on our YouTube, so go to Our Local Establishment on YouTube to go ahead and check that out. It's doing well, but it can always do better. It's a fantastic show. We talk for about almost 2 hours, and it's a really interesting deep dive into the opinion of somebody who watches predominantly one wrestling brand, as opposed to the opinions of people who watch as much wrestling as they can. Melball covers mostly just Japanese wrestling. She doesn't watch a lot of American wrestling, so she doesn't know what really happens in AEW or Impact, or in WWE. Same thing with Lauren. Lauren watches AEW, refuses to watch WWE for valid reasons. Cody, kind of a little bit over the WWE thing. Loves watching his Impact, though. So go ahead and check those out. We all had our own little pieces in there. It's fantastic. We can find out which NXT star I named as one of my wrestlers of the year. With that said, drink. We are going to go ahead and head out of here. So we are going to go ahead and say thank you for joining us. This has been Taking Over, and we will see you next week. Remember that we are rating Jessica, I believe, still. Hold on, let me check the private chat. Yes, we're going to go ahead and raid Jessica. So go ahead, and we will see you soon. Good night to you, Barry. Yes, see you Thursday to talk about the greatest show on earth, Impact. Second greatest. NXT is really great. But yes, we will join you next time. So go ahead, and we will see you soon.
Everyone is watching me when I'm coming